Israel attacked Iran with unprecedented strikes on Friday, in which Iran retaliated by deploying over 100 drones toward Israeli territory. President Lee Jae-myung convened an emergency meeting and pledged to put the lives and safety of South Koreans in the Middle East first. South Korea's new commander-in-chief, President Lee Jae-myung, continues to put emphasis on securing peace on the Korean peninsula through dialogue and cooperation. By visiting and encouraging South Korean soldiers at a base near the border between the two Koreas on Friday. 3 special counsels have been named to officially look into investigations into allegations made against former President Yoon Suk-yeol and his wife and the supposed cover-up of the death of a Marine. Good evening. We begin in the Middle East, where Israel conducted preemptive strikes on Iran. Now, Iran hit back almost immediately with drone attacks. Our Pyeon Hae-young leads us tonight.
In the early hours of Friday, Israel launched strikes on Iran's capital, Tehran, targeting nuclear and military facilities.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat.
State media confirmed the deaths of several top military officials and scientists, including Mohammad Bagheri, chief of staff of Iran's military. General Hossein Salami, commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, and ranking commander General Gholam Ali Rashid were also reported killed. People in Tehran heard another round of explosions a few hours after the initial attack, with more being heard in other Iranian cities as well. The strikes come just days before scheduled U.S.-Iran nuclear talks in Oman. According to a statement released by the state-run news agency, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warned of severe punishment for Israel. Brigadier General Efi Defrin, chief spokesperson for the Israeli army, said Iran had launched over 100 drones toward Israel in recent hours, and that defense systems were working to intercept the threats. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio described Israel's actions as unilateral and stated that Israel had informed the U.S. it viewed the attacks as essential for its self-defense. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the military escalation and called on both sides to exercise maximum restraint, warning that the Middle East cannot afford a wider conflict. Pyeon Hae-young, Arirang News.
And President Lee Jae-myung held an emergency meeting on Friday afternoon, emphasizing that the safety and lives of South Koreans are the most important issue amid escalating tensions in the Middle East. And the leader called on officials to implement measures to ensure the safety and well-being of Korean nationals in the region, and ordered officials to monitor oil, currency, and stock markets to prepare for volatility. The Foreign Ministry has also expressed a deep concern over the escalating situation in the Middle East and is communicating with diplomatic missions to ensure the safety of Korean nationals. The ministry said as of Friday, there have been no South Korean casualties. South Korean markets also closed sharply lower on Friday due to deepening tensions in the Middle East, a first loss after 7 market days of gains. The benchmark KOSPI slid nearly 0.9% to finish at 2,894, falling back below the 2,900 mark. Now, on the other hand, as the Middle East crisis is expected to drive up global oil prices and shipping rates, oil stocks and shipping stocks rallied. Now, the Korean won also took a hit, closing at 1,369.6. This is a jump of 10.91 compared to the day before, while it also went beyond the 1,370 range during the day. South Korea's new president appears to be aligning with his defense policy with a focus on peace through dialogue. Today, President Lee Jae-myung met with frontline troops and residents near the border with North Korea, just days after suspending loudspeaker broadcasts aimed at Pyongyang. Our presidential office correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
South Korea's new commander-in-chief, President Lee Jae-myung, visited the Army's 25th Infantry Division in Yeoncheon-gun County, Gyeonggi-do Province on Friday, his first visit to a military unit since taking office. Welcomed by some 50 service members, President Lee expressed his gratitude for their hard work and dedication to the country and inspected military facilities in the area.
앞으로 우리 군에 대한 서구나 군에 대한 대우들도 인식도 많이 바뀔 겁니다. 자부심 가지고 최선을 다해주기 바랍니다. 여러분들은 대한민국이 존속하기 위한 가장 중요한 역할을 하는 사람들이죠.
Lee reaffirmed his peace through dialogue approach during the visit, which came 2 days after suspending South Korea's loudspeaker broadcast toward the north. Pyongyang also appears to have halted its loudspeaker campaign as of Thursday.
싸울 필요가 없는 상태를 만들고 평화를 만드는 것이 가장 확실한 방법이죠. 그건 우리 같은 사람들이 하는 일입니다.
Later in the day, President Lee spoke with residents near the inter-Korean border who've been suffering from the loudspeaker campaigns.
Even with just one night of silence, I couldn't sleep yesterday, torn between relief and anxiety. I've developed insomnia, and sleeping pills don't even help now. Every time I think about it, I tear up. I'm just so thankful.
서로에게 득되지 않는 이런 걸 최대한 하지 말아야 되는데 어쨌든 상당 기간 안타깝게도 그런 일들이 있었습니다. 어쨌든 그 중간에 끼인 여러분들이 제일 고생 많으셨어요. 남북이 긴장 관계가 좀 많이 완화돼서 또 경제 문제도 상당 정도 좀 해결되면 좋겠습니다.
In an unscheduled addition to his itinerary, the president also met with the head of Yeoncheon-gun County and local business owners to check in on their livelihoods, particularly the Rural Basic Income Project he introduced during his tenure as Gyeonggi-do Province governor. The program provides all residents in a designated area with a monthly payment of around $110 in local currency. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Also on Friday, President Lee vowed for what he called a rationalization of business regulations through the lifting of unnecessary regulations that hinder growth. This came on Friday as he sat down with leaders of major conglomerates, Samsung, Hyundai Motors, LG, SK, and Lotte, as well as chairs of top business organizations at Yongsan Presidential Office, and vowed to support them. He said he used the word rationalization instead of easing or loosening, as there needs to be regulation in place to promote a fair corporate competition. He added that the government and private sector need to work together to overcome the current economic crisis. The top office also said he stressed a need to go all out to overcome the crisis through practical and flexible trade policies amid U.S. tariff policies. A senior U.S. diplomat has reaffirmed the strength of the Seoul-Washington alliance as it marked the first visit of a high-level official to South Korea since its new leader was elected. The State Department's senior bureau official for East Asian and Pacific Affairs, Sean O'Neill, held meetings at Seoul's Foreign Ministry on Friday. He met with counterparts in charge of intelligence and North Korea affairs, as well as economic issues. This comes ahead of President Lee Jae-myung's attendance at the G7 summit next week, where he is likely to hold his first bilateral summit with President Donald Trump on the sidelines. O'Neill told reporters he's in Seoul to talk about security interests, including North Korea, and the prosperity of both nations. The Economy and Finance Ministry on Friday released its first economic evaluation under the new government. Now, according to the ministry, the South Korean economy continues to face downward pressure. Our Park Jun-han has the details.
The Ministry of Economy and Finance on Friday assessed that downside pressures on the economy continue to persist due to tariff-led uncertainties. This assessment comes in the ministry's Green Book for June, detailing South Korea's economic trends. The ministry, however, dropped increasing when describing downside pressure on the economy. Globally, the 90-day suspension of reciprocal tariffs and a trade agreement between the U.S. and China have eased some uncertainties. Domestically, a slight increase in consumer and business confidence following political stabilization and reduced global economic tension has prevented downside pressures from worsening, though they still persist.
I think when we first used the phrase downside pressures, we were primarily referring to internal uncertainty. Later, we noted that internal risks seemed to be gradually easing, while external risks had grown due to Trump's tariff policies.
The ministry pledged to swiftly implement the supplementary budget approved in May, while simultaneously preparing the second.
The ministry will continue to focus on responding to trade risks, including supporting our businesses affected by the imposition of U.S. tariffs. We will also accelerate the speed of development and implementation of a supplemental spending bill to revitalize the economy, stimulate consumption, and support vulnerable and small businesses.
When asked about how Israel's attack on Iran earlier on the same day would impact the economy going forward, the spokesperson said that, regardless of the attack, downside pressure challenges persist. Park Junan, Arirang News.
The so-called 3 special probes are now ready to begin, with President Lee's appointments having been completed on a Friday. So after up to 20 days of preparation, investigations will officially start, focusing on allegations against former President Yoon Suk-yeol, his wife, and the death of a Marine. Our political correspondent Sinayong has more.
3 special counsels have been appointed and are gearing up to launch investigations into allegations made against former President Yoon Suk-yeol and his wife and the supposed cover-up of the death of a Marine. President Lee Jae-myung on Thursday night appointed former acting chief of the Board of Audit and Inspection, Cho Eun-seok, to investigate Yoon's declaration of martial law last December and related insurrection charges. Cho on Friday pledged to ensure that the work done by the police, the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials, and the prosecution would not be wasted. Min Jung-gi, former chief judge of the Seoul Central District Court, will look into allegations against former First Lady Kim Gon-hee, including stock manipulation and election fraud.
I'm aware that the case has raised a lot of questions from the public. Since this is a very controversial case, I believe it's important to remain objective.
Lee Myung-hyun, who previously served as a senior official at the Defense Ministry's prosecutor's office, has been tasked with investigating the death of a Marine during flood rescue operations in 2023.
I see it as my duty to uncover the truth behind this unjust death, and I'll do my best to get to the bottom of it.
The ruling Democratic Party and the Rebuilding Korea Party on Thursday each recommended 3 candidates, 1 for each special counsel position. Among those recommended, 2 candidates from the ruling party and 1 from the other party were appointed. The DP welcomed the swift appointments, expressing hope that they will meet public expectations and uncover the truth.
All 3 special counsels are seen as having strong investigative skills and standing firm against outside pressure. We hope they will stay focused on the people and work to uncover the full truth.
On the other hand, the opposition People Power Party strongly criticized the appointments, saying the government has shifted its focus away from people's livelihoods and is now heading toward political retaliation. They also pointed out that all 3 special counsels were recommended by the DP and the RKP, claiming political interests were put ahead of fair investigations.
The choice of special counsels clearly shows the political bias of the Lee Jae-myung administration. It suggests the real goal is to target the opposition and take political revenge.
Each special counsel will start with a 20-day preparation period. The full-scale investigations are expected to begin as early as the end of this month or at the latest in early July. Sinayong, Arirang News.
A federal judge granted a temporary injunction against U.S. President Donald Trump's deployment of the California National Guard, which plaintiffs had argued violated the U.S. Constitution, giving the administration until next week to file an appeal. According to AP on Thursday, Judge Charles Breyer stated that Trump's military intervention in federalizing the Guard was illegal and that he must therefore return control of the unit to the governor of California. However, a few hours after, an appeals court put the order on hold until a hearing takes place next Tuesday, where the court will determine whether Trump followed congressional mandated procedure. This comes after California Governor Gavin Newsom filed a case with the courts on Monday, calling President Trump's military intervention against protests over a federal immigration policy in LA an assault on democracy. Over in India now, recovery efforts continued Friday in the wreckage of a London-bound Air India passenger plane that crashed almost immediately after takeoff, leaving just one survivor. Our Tae-young has the latest.
Air India said on Friday that 241 of 242 people on board a plane bound for London that crashed on Thursday were killed in what is thought to be one of India's worst airline disasters in decades. The Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner crashed in the northwestern city of Ahmedabad shortly after takeoff. According to reports, 169 Indian nationals, 53 British nationals, 7 Portuguese, and 1 Canadian national were among the passengers on board. However, one passenger, a British national named Vishvash Kumar Ramesh, who sat in seat 11A, miraculously survived the crash and was sent to a nearby hospital for treatment, saying he had no idea how he survived.
Yeah, he's fine. I said nothing else. He absolutely upset things. Yeah. Not just because he's our brother, but other people as well. Yeah. But there's 242 people in the flight. Yeah.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the scene of the crash on Friday and met with hospitalized people who had been injured on the ground. The National Disaster Response Force said that 81 bodies had been recovered by the morning, with the remains of the dead still being recovered. The death toll is expected to rise as the aircraft crashed into a residential area attached to a medical college. It's still unclear what caused the crash. However, videos that have emerged show the plane struggling to gain altitude, seemingly amid a lack of thrust or power. One cause that has been speculated on by some experts is the possibility of an extremely rare double-engine failure. The UK government has dispatched an investigation team to India to assist in determining the cause of the crash, as has the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, the National Transportation Safety Board, and representatives from Boeing, the aircraft's manufacturer. Chae-young, Arirang News.
It's Friday, which means it's time for arts and culture. We have our culture correspondent, Choi Soo-hyung, in the studio. Welcome, Soo-hyung.
Thanks for having me.
So, Soo-hyung, I'm so excited to see what your first feature report is all about. You lead the way.
Yes, Damia, you and I already knew that earlier this week, the Korean original musical named Maybe Happy Ending just swept this year's Tony Awards.
Right.
This is one of the most prestigious musical theater awards in the world, and it proves the strength of Korean culture and Korean musicals. So I asked an expert about the factors behind its success and what this could mean for the future of Korean musicals. Here's the full story. On June 9th, in New York City, the Korean original musical Maybe Happy Ending became the star of the 78th Tony Awards. The musical won in 6 of the 10 categories it received nominations for, including Best Musical, Best Book of a Musical, and Best Original Score.
So many people worked hard with us for a long time. Seeing how happy they are now makes me feel incredibly proud. A lot of us poured our hearts into this project and gave it everything. That's one thing I can say with confidence.
Experts say the wins were significant, as the musical succeeded without being a Hollywood-style blockbuster or based on a classic original story, both typical Broadway favorites.
Maybe Happy Ending isn't a typical Broadway show. It's not based on a classic story.
nor is it a big-budget blockbuster. It's an original, unique, low-budget, and new way for a Korean musical, especially as it is set in a future Seoul. That's why its success is so meaningful. It took major honors like Best Musical, Best Direction, and Best Book, winning 6 Tonys.
The professor also noted that the musical's focus on the love between artificial intelligence robots reflects a philosophical advancement, adding significant value to its writing.
Hollywood usually focuses on AI and robots in terms of identity, like Am I Human? But maybe Happy Ending goes further by exploring love between AI robots, which is a more advanced philosophical theme. It blends universal emotions with Korean originality, creating a fresh musical model. By breaking away from familiar formulas, it showed that bold, emotional storytelling can succeed globally.
He stressed that what makes Korean content globally recognized is its deep cultural receptivity, not as a melting pot nor a salad bowl, but through a unique stage of fermentation.
1995 was the year Windows 95 launched, and soon after, Korea's high-speed internet network opened the door to global content, which today's creators grew up with. No other East Asian country absorbed global trends and universal values through content as freely as Korea did. Now, 30 years later, K-culture is in its fermentation stage and bursting out, creating something truly unique.
He said current hits are fine, but Korean content should focus on diversity rooted in humanism rather than simply following Western formulas for success.
Absolutely fascinating, Soo-hyung. Now, it looks like the usual formulas for renowned global award winners are, maybe starting to break down these days. Would you say the, trends in award selections are changing?
I wouldn't say the entire trend has changed or shifted, but in more details, the professor said even Broadway itself is hitting a wall, and because most of the major classics have been used already, so they're just running out of materials. So yeah, in that sense, maybe Happy Ending is significant because it presents a new breakthrough, bringing a brand new, fresh model for Broadway to follow, and this doesn't apply to this show. And think about Bong Joon-ho's Parasite and Squid Game or Han Kang's Human Acts. It's not so much that the US standards have changed, but it's more that Korean trends have already become global trends.
Like you mentioned, with the Oscars, the Nobel Prize in Literature, and the Tony Awards, it looks like Korea is setting major, milestones across the various culture fields. Now, the question is the 30-year fermentation stage that the professor mentioned the key to Korean content success, would you say?
Yeah, South Korea is very audience-friendly and with a strong bottom-up approach and putting people first, and creators usually listen carefully to what people think and what people said and just try to follow the taste and trends of their audiences. And the professor said that if maybe Happy Ending had been too full of heavy philosophical messages, it probably wouldn't have won the awards. In places like Broadway or Hollywood, they prefer, even if the theme is deep, about 95% of the content is still be fun and entertaining, because in the end, it has to be chosen by the audiences.
Right.
Yeah. And maybe Happy Ending also started getting attention through word of mouth via social media, and many other Korean content creators naturally follow that balance.
Indeed. Soo-hyung, thank you so much for coming in today. I'll be looking forward to every Friday for the culture segment with you.
I'll do my best. Thank you. My pleasure.
Rain has been falling everywhere today. The rain clouds have gradually spread to the southern parts of the Chungcheongdo provinces, and it is expected to rain in the Seoul metropolitan area tonight. Jeju will get as much as 180 millimeters of heavy rain, and the mountainous areas will receive more than 250 millimeters. The south coast will also receive more than 120 millimeters of heavy rain. As heavy rain is concentrated on Jeju Island and the south coast, a preliminary heavy rain warning has been issued for these areas. Gusty winds are also forecast between tonight and early morning tomorrow, so preliminary strong wind warning has also been issued. Tomorrow morning will start off at around 19 to 21 degrees Celsius in most parts of the country. Daily highs will move up to 30 degrees in Seoul and Chuncheon, 27 degrees in Gwangju and Gyeongju. This rain will continue until next Monday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. Kim Dami, for all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.